Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. And I don't think I've ever done an Akatsuki. I've done it again, haven't I? It's not the Akatsuki Jingles, that's the Tier 7. This is the Akizuki, the Tier 8. I'm constantly getting these two ships mixed up, and you guys are always pointing it out, and you never let me get away with it. Well, anyway. Now that we finally know what ship we're actually looking at in today's video, it is of course the Akizuki, the Japanese Tier 8 gunboat type destroyer, and it's being played for us today by DJ Khalib. I didn't know an awful lot about this ship, I have to admit, and so I had to do a little bit of research. It turns out that in a break with tradition as far as other Japanese destroyers are concerned, the Akizuki class of destroyers was actually designed as an anti-aircraft escort, which is kind of ironic because the aircraft carrier on DJ Khalib's team here is busy complaining about the matchmaking, and well, he kind of does have a bit of a point. It's a Tier 6 Japanese carrier in a Tier 8 battle, and there are some ships on the enemy team with some fearsome anti-aircraft defences. Then again, it could be worse. The Independence on the enemy team, also Tier 6, is going to have to deal with a North Carolina, a pair of Bismarcks, a Cleveland, and DJ Khalib here in the Akizuki. All things considered, I think I'd rather be on this team. Anyway, so yes, the Akizuki, a superlative anti-aircraft escort. It had 8 100mm dual-purpose guns, as well as a whole bunch of dedicated anti-aircraft guns. And while this class of ship was a very nice anti-aircraft platform, the Imperial Japanese Navy felt that it was a little bit wasteful designing a class of ship that was good at shooting down aircraft and not a whole lot else. And so modifications were made. Torpedo tubes were added, depth charge launchers were added to give the ship more of a multi-role general purpose destroyer capability, and in the process these modifications turned the Akizuki into what is generally considered to be the most capable class of destroyer that the Japanese built during World War II. It even had radar. It was one of the first Japanese ships to be fitted with radar, although you don't get the radar consumable here in World of Warships. That would just be ridiculous. It wasn't without its limitations, however. The torpedo armament was very light by Japanese destroyer standards. It only had one quadruple-barreled torpedo launcher mounted midships and capable of firing to either side. Other Japanese destroyers, like that Kagero over there, have substantially more torpedoes that they can put in the water, but what they do not have is the blistering, almost American rate of fire of these 100mm guns. Now he's peppering that Kagero over there with high explosive, and that's absolutely fine. But one word of caution. The Akizuki only has 100mm guns. These are fairly low caliber guns for a destroyer of this tier. If you're firing at American or Russian destroyers of the same tier or higher in this ship, your high explosive doesn't actually have sufficient penetration to reliably and consistently deal damage to them, and it is recommended that you switch to armor piercing instead. Now, we've made a big deal about the anti-aircraft firepower on this ship, and here come the enemy aircraft. Dive bombers, torpedo bombers, here they come. Now, these are only Tier 6 aircraft. There's an Independence carrier on the enemy team, but just look at this. The ship does not get the defensive fire cooldown. This is just the raw anti-aircraft firepower. He is melting that squadron of torpedo bombers. The dive bombers, there they are. They got through, but they missed. And they're not going to make it home in one piece. Okay, they do have fighter support vectored in to intercept them as well. And I have to give some credit to the friendly carrier here, the Ryujo. He wasn't too keen on the matchmaking in this particular game, but he's definitely doing the best he possibly can, and he's going to have a pretty good game. Now, about that signal torpedo launcher, which is a bit of a drawback in this ship, but, well, you know, the guns on this ship are absolutely fantastic. You can't really have it all. Except you can, because the Akizuki is one of the select few Japanese destroyers that gets access to the torpedo reload booster, and what that does is once you have fired your torpedoes, all 4 of them in the case of the Akizuki, you can use the torpedo reload booster to immediately fire all 4 of them again. So that one torpedo launcher actually becomes 2 with the use of the torpedo reload booster consumable. On some Japanese destroyers which have access to this consumable, you have to choose between it and your smokescreen. You don't have to make that choice in the Akizuki, you can have both. Now then, about these 100mm guns, 8 of them in 4 turrets, 2 guns per turret. They have a rate of fire of 20 shots per minute. That's 160 shots per minute this thing is capable of pushing out. And the initial shell velocity is ridiculous, 1,000 meters per second. It's like firing railguns. The problem, although it's not necessarily a problem, is that that's just the initial shell velocity. The shots do tend to lose velocity dramatically with range. And when you're shooting at a target that's about 10 kilometers or more away, the shells spend so much time going up and sort of hanging in the air before dropping down that at times it feels like you're sailing in Atlanta. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it does mean that you can still hit a target at long range when it's trying to hide behind an island. And at close range, with that 1,000 meter per second initial shell velocity, the shots have a nice flat trajectory and get to the target so fast that you barely have to give any lead. It's a very, very easy ship to get into a close range gunfight with. It's not all good news about these guns, however. There are some drawbacks. They are just 100mm guns. The high explosive shells don't do much damage. They only have a 5% chance of setting a fire on target, and if you're firing at a battleship, or even a cruiser, in some cases with the high explosive shells, you're going to see a lot of shatters. Sometimes it's actually better to switch to the armor piercing when you're shooting at battleships and higher tier cruisers, depending on the range of course, and just pepper their superstructure. You'll do more consistent damage. Oh, it's worth pointing out at the moment that so far DJ Khalib's team have lost 4 ships, and that Miyoko over there is going to be only the 2nd ship that they've managed to sink. And the guy that gets the kill, Sasquatch Research in the Bismarck. Now, I'm not saying he's a dirty kill-stealing bastard. It's a team game after all. It doesn't matter who gets the kills as long as the enemy ships go down. But that's the 2nd time now he's finished off a ship that DJ Khalib has been piling shells into. He did it with the Kagero earlier. He's just done it with the Miyoko, and it's not the last time he's going to do it either. So you wouldn't believe... DJ Khalib does get a fair amount of kills in this game, but it should have been so many more. Anyway, here are these 100mm high explosive shells in action against an equal tier destroyer, the Mayhan. Oh wait, no, the Mayhan's tier 7. What am I talking about? The Benson's the tier 8. But either way, it's a lower tier destroyer. He hit that Mayhan 12 times with his high explosive shells. They do have a very low damage output. That was less than 5,000 damage done with 12 hits on a lower tier destroyer. It's just as well that this ship does have a blisteringly fast rate of fire, because it really does need it in order to make the damage stack up. Meanwhile, the Mayhan's had enough. He's popped smoke and he's hiding somewhere inside that smoke screen. This does of course mean that for now at least, DJ Khalib is not detected. Although that's not going to last for too much longer, because he's about to start blazing away with the guns again. And here's the torpedo reload booster in action. By default, these torpedoes have a 1 minute 50 second reload. But when you use the booster, that drops the reload down to 5 seconds. Now the booster itself has a 3 minute and 50 second cooldown, so you're not going to be spamming it. But it does at least allow you to be a proper Japanese destroyer for short periods of time. And now it's the turn of the Amagi to feel the punishment from these 100mm guns, except, well, it sort of is and it sort of isn't. Have a look at the number of shatters that he's getting. Now, it's not unusual to get shatters when you're firing destroyer caliber guns at a battleship, but the Akizuki gets a lot of them. And that low chance of fire on target is going to be, well, quite significant here as well. In fact, he's going to have to hit this Amagi 66 times. Oh, and he's managed to get a torpedo into him with his first launch, and I think he's going to get a torpedo into him with a boosted launch as well. Yep, there we go. But 66 shots hit that Amagi before he set his first fire. Of those 66 first shots, 42 of them were shatters. Of all the shots that he fired at that Amagi, nearly 2/3 did no damage whatsoever. They just shattered harmlessly, sometimes even off the superstructure. That, unfortunately, is the price you pay for having these rapid-fire 100mm guns. We'd just like to thank the Mayhan, by the way, without whose smokescreen DJ Khalib wouldn't have been able to sit here shelling this Amagi with complete impunity. And this time it's not the Bismarck, but it's the North Carolina who takes the kill. Now, the Mayhan smokescreen is just dissipated, and for the first time in this game, DJ Khalib is actually going to use his own smoke generator. And Now, well, he's having a bit more success shooting at this Bismarck. He's getting more successful impacts than he is shatters. I don't know, perhaps when he was shooting at the Amagi, it did look like some of those shots were actually hitting the hull of the ship. Bismarck's now gone behind an island. If the Bismarck was 10 kilometers or more away, DJ Khalib would be able to continue shooting and still hitting that guy, but now he's got to wait for him to come out from behind the cover of the island, and he's starting to turn away, but he is on kind of low health. Can we get a kill steal of our own here? It's by no means guaranteed with the low damage output of these high explosive shells. You can see he's scoring multiple effective hits, but he's doing like 700 damage, 300 damage, 900 damage. He's never scoring more than 1,000 damage. Oh, we set him on fire. Come on. No. The only way he's going to get a kill in this game is if somebody dies and wills it to him. Oh, here we go. Tirpitz, more than 10 kilometers away. Now, there. Do you see the ballistic properties of the shells at that kind of rate? Did that look like 1,000 meters per second to you? And again, oh, he's managed to hit the Tirpitz and set him on fire. Oh, that's good news. But yes, the ballistic properties of the shells fired from these guns have drastically different properties depending on the range that you're firing at. At short range, they're rail guns. At long range, it really does feel like you're sailing in an Atlanta. Anyway, enemy carrier, almost in range. But the Chapayev, the cruiser over there, is in range. So, torpedo reload booster, still on cooldown, so it's just the single torpedo launch, pops him in the water against the Chapayev and starts lighting him up with the guns. Very, very happy to report that the Chapayev is not targeting him. And you can see that the performance of these high explosive shells, even against a cruiser, is not that much better than it was against a heavily armoured battleship. They're still not doing a huge amount of damage, and he's still getting a lot of shatters. People complain that the Akizuki is overpowered thanks to the rate of fire and number of these guns, but, well, there's the evidence right in front of your eyes. The accuracy and rate of fire of these guns is what actually balances the ship against the low damage output and low penetration of the high explosive shells. If it didn't have that rate of fire, this ship would be terrible, because it just wouldn't be able to do any damage to anything. And here's the thing about the Akizuki. It has mediocre ammunition in very, very good guns, and that combination can get you into a lot of trouble when taken into consideration with another factor, and that's the substandard speed and manoeuvrability of this ship. It's very un-Japanese. The ship only has a top speed of 33 knots, it's got a large turning circle, and a relatively slow rudder shift time for a destroyer. It's definitely not something that Japanese captains prior to this are going to be used to. The ship definitely does take some getting used to. The one factor that probably comes as the biggest shock to brand new Akizuki captains is that you just cannot run away from cruisers in this thing. It's not fast enough. Probably the worst nightmare for an Akizuki captain is to find themselves being pursued by a determined enemy cruiser captain. Typical destroyer tactics when they find themselves getting zeroed in by an enemy cruiser is just to stop shooting, assuming that their smokescreen isn't on cooldown, stop shooting, turn away, and run. You can't do that in the Akizuki. Your top speed is at best 1 knot faster, and in most cases only half a knot faster than all of the other tier 8 cruisers, with the exception of the Attigo, which is actually faster than you are. You've already seen the relatively poor performance of these high explosive shells even against cruisers. And if you're running away from an enemy cruiser who's in hot pursuit, you've only got the 2 rear gun turrets to fire at him with, and they don't do a lot of damage. He is going to be doing a lot more damage to you than you are to him. And God help you if you're being chased by a Chapayev, because he's not only faster than you are, he's also got radar. So, generally speaking, you probably don't want to be wandering too far away from the relative safety and security of other ships on your team when you're in the Akizuki, or have your finger poised and ready to go on the speed boost consumable. He's setting some nice fires on that Independence. He's switching his fire to the Tirpitz now. Oh, he's managed to get a kill! Hooray! Well, it's about damn time. 132,000 damage done before he gets his first kill in this game. Torpedoes are ready to go. Tirpitz is comfortably within range. Can't see him, sitting inside the smokescreen. Torpedo reload booster up. Reload of torpedoes reduced to 5 seconds. Second salvo of torpedoes away. There's the high caliber award. And the Tirpitz, well, he's just begging for a paddling here, isn't he? I mean, he may as well be sailing with a big sticker on his back saying, please kick me. He's just had his torpedo tubes knocked out. Now, it may be that he's deliberately sailing 6 kilometres broadside on from a smokescreen housing a destroyer because he wanted to get some torpedoes away, but, well, here's the thing. If you're in a Tirpitz and you can hit somebody with your torpedoes, they can hit you too. And you're a damn sight bigger a target, especially if you're sailing broadside onto that smokescreen. Now, the smokescreen's gone, of course, so the Tirpitz can finally see DJ Khalib, and yep, here come the secondaries, but he's getting the ship underway. He's got no speed boosts left, and then the Tirpitz... I can only assume that the Tirpitz did this in order to get the torpedoes away from the other side of the ship, because he's used his damage control to put out the fires and control the flooding, which would also have fixed the torpedo launchers. But... nope. No torpedoes in the water. So I have no idea what that Tirpitz was doing there. Well, I'll tell you what he was doing there. He was basically giving DJ Khalib a high caliber. He now has 199,000 damage done. And with that comprehensive spanking being administered to the Tirpitz, that just leaves 2 destroyers and a Nürnberg cruiser left alive on the enemy team. And we know where the Nürnberg is. He's over there, getting bombed and torpedoed by the Tier 6 carrier who was complaining about the matchmaking at the beginning of the game. He actually had a pretty good game, which is no mean feat when you're in a Tier 6 carrier in a Tier 8 battle, but there we go, that's at least 1 torpedo hit. Kagero spotted as well. Oh, bonus. And the Nürnberg's in range, we just have to clear the island, and then we can start shooting. Nürnberg does not have a lot of health. Also, as most Nürnberg captains will readily attest, does not have a lot of armour either, but, well, it's the same old story with these 100mm guns. It's very much a case of throw enough shit at the wall and some of it is going to stick, because most of it isn't. But there's a huge volume of shit gets thrown at the wall with the Akizuki's 100mm guns. And enough of it, I mean, look at the damage that he's doing. That was like 200 damage, 200 damage. It was enough though. He's managed to get his 3rd kill. And this is a Kagero that's just found itself in the extremely unenviable position of getting into a gunfight with an Akizuki with his torpedo tubes knocked out. He also has the distinction of being the saltiest bitch on the surface of the planet. It's probably fair to say that he was not at home to Mr. Happy. Very upset indeed. Oh, I love it when people get salty in chat. Basically what they're saying is, well played, sir. Jolly good show. Except, you know, in internet speak. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this game. They never did find that last Z-23 on the enemy team. There just isn't enough time left. He's all the way over on the other side of the map, was defending his cap against one of the other destroyers on DJ Khalib's team. The thing, at least for DJ Khalib, that made this game remarkable was the amount of damage that he did. DJ Khalib actually has all of the tier 10 destroyers, and he's never done 200,000 damage in them. In order to do that, he had to come down to tier 8 and play the Akizuki, and that's why he loves this ship. Of course, in order to actually do 200,000 damage in the Akizuki, you have to hit the targets with 4 torpedoes and 761 100mm shells, because, well, that's what the Akizuki is like, I'm afraid. You either love it or you hate it. And DJ Khalib very, very definitely loves it. Shout out, by the way, to the Ryujo there, the tier 6 carrier, who knuckled down, got on with it, and despite the fact that he was horribly under-tiered, managed to finish 2nd on the team for damage, well, not for damage done, but 2nd on the team for experience earned. So well done to him, and well done to DJ Khalib, having the game of his life in the Japanese tier 8 gunboat destroyer, the Akizuki. Hope you enjoyed today's video, folks, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.